every man and woman who dies in Iraq, whether our men and women or Iraqi men and women, belong to all of us. And every dollar that is spent are our dollars. And we're responsible for that. And we take that responsibility. We're doing our work. Now it's up to Congress. In the States, there are already 18 resolutions that are being passed to end this war. You can go to the WAND website, W-A-N-D, remember, New Directions, and find out if your state is there. If not, get your state to pass a resolution.
In these devastating 7 years, as this regime pursues its so-called agenda of security, it has made this world insanely insecure. Some of their logic: bomb Iraq to get rid of theoretical terrorists and manufacture thousands of terrorists in the process. Secure democracy by using techniques of torture and undermine democracy everywhere. Promise to liberate women and through occupation and invasion, and in the process reverse their constitutional rights, introduce Sharia law, rob them of protection, raise the level of violence that happened towards them.
My name is Philip Miller. I'm a veteran of World War II. I fought in the Battle of Manila, and I saw the suffering of civilians during the war. I saw many people dead in the streets of Manila. I believe that the Bush administration does not understand the impact of war, and the Bush administration is committing an international crime. I've been against the war ever since the Bush administration was building up to the war. It's a terrible crime. It's depleting our treasury. It's diverting public service funds for the public. I think that Bush should be held accountable for what he's done, because he's responsible for a terrible crime. He's a war criminal.
Working people across this country are sick and tired of being sick and tired. Our message no longer goes out to George Bush, it goes to the people that we have put there to represent our will. Now everybody standing here knows that George Bush has a hearing problem. Am I right? We told him through our vote that we did not want this war to go on, but again he was deaf. Now, in this war now, we have a simple motto to put out there for folks to understand. It does not take a rocket scientist to give the message. It is simply a mantra of 3 sentences.
Are there others here?
Not one more death.
Nearly 4 years of the American occupation of Iraq is enough. And that nearly 40 years of the Israeli occupation of Palestine is clearly more than enough. We're the U.S. campaign to end the Israeli occupation. We're a national coalition dedicated, committed, and will not stop until we change U.S. foreign policy to Israel-Palestine to be based on human rights and international law. And we're a member of the USPJ coalition because we have the same cause.
We're going to need your energy, your passion, your commitment, and we're going to need your money as well. For the past 4 years, USPJ has been galvanizing people's opposition to this war, and we've been doing it on a shoestring budget. But now we need your help because we got to step this up. We got to step it up to end this war. So today we need you to please dig deep, give generously to support the ongoing work.
Now, while you're digging deep into your pockets, I want to bring on Emma's Revolution.
Well, we're here from North Carolina because we think we need to fix things at home and not enough killing. We need to get some health care to this country. We need to get kids through college.
The troop surge in Iraq is pretty ridiculous at this point. We need to obviously have a new administration. At least the Democrats are in office now in the Congress, and we can get things done with raising minimum wage and helping the economy with the blue-collar workers losing all their jobs. Would anybody else?
Kelly? Jessica?
It's a great cause. I'm glad there was so much turnout here today.
A few volunteers to hold red buckets for contributions. We need help.
No more Bush! No more Bush. Thank you.
My name is Maxine Waters, and I helped to get rid of Rumsfeld. My name is Maxine Waters, and Connie Rice is nothing but another neocon, and she doesn't represent me. He came out on the battleship and said, mission accomplished. He misled us again. I will not hold one dime to continue this war, to expand this war, and you can tell the difference between those who are ready to bring our soldiers home and those who are only paying lip service. Don't forget, he is not the decider, he is the... He's not the decider, he is the...
As Americans, we share common values. Values of honesty, compassion, and whenever possible, non-violence. We also recognize the moral responsibility we have to raise our voices in support of those values when they are under assault. There is no morality without the willingness to act. That's why we are here today. Values of telling the truth, of helping those who are in need, and of never resorting to violence except as a last resort. Thank you so much that you have come here today to raise your voice out of deep concern for our nation. The fundamental values underlying our Constitution so dearly that you have come today to let the world know that we as Americans abhor the kidnapping, disappearance, and imprisonment of people without any semblance of due process. And that was sold to the American people and to the world at large on the basis of blatant lies. Because we value compassion, truth, and human rights so much that we want the world to know how embarrassed we are, how sad we are, how outraged we are that our president and a complacent Congress, with the aid and assistance of a dismal mainstream media, have caused millions of people. That is not what we as Americans stand for. That is not what our country stands for, and we want the world to know it. We are here today as true patriots. Blind obedience to bad leadership is not patriotism.
Oh, we should have brought it.
Maligning the patriotism of others who stand up out of concern for the betrayal of our most cherished values is not patriotism.
Wanna go around?
to sit back and let others fight for a return to decency. Let us join together to break the cycle of hatred, of intolerance, of violence. Let us build a better nation and a better world together.
Bush hates labor as much as he does Iraqis. I appreciate your comments. He wants to kill you guys as bad as he does the Iraqis.
Thank you. Hi, Rita.
So many of today's speakers, including my fellow actors up here, were here at the very beginning, before we went into Iraq, because you knew and they knew what was in store. Thank you so much for the courage to stand up against this mean-spirited, vengeful administration. Your actions are proof that the most precious part of this country, its soul, is alive and well. So thank you. Your ongoing commitment to ending this war allows people in other parts of the world to remain hopeful that America has the stuff to become again a country that they can love and respect. Thank you. It took 6 years for Vietnam veterans, active duty servicemen, Gold Star mothers, and military families to come out against the war. It has happened now within 3 years of the war. Their presence here is critical, and we should acknowledge their courage. I haven't spoken at an anti-war rally in 34 years because I've been afraid that because of the lies that have been and continue to be spread about me in that war, that they would be used to hurt this new anti-war movement. But silence is no longer an option. My daughter, who is here with me today, come here. She was a little girl when she would come with me to the anti-Vietnam War protests. She's here today with her 2 little children, my grandchildren. I'm very proud that they're here, but I'm so sad that we still have to do this, that we did not learn the lessons from the Vietnam War, that we've made the same mistakes, blindness to the realities on the ground, hubris and arrogance in dealing with a people and culture far older than we are, and that we understand so little, carelessness and thoughtlessness in our approach to rebuilding a country we've destroyed, allowing billions of dollars to be stolen, squandered at the hands of private contractors, just as this administration has done in our own Gulf in the post-Katrina era. So thank you.
continue to be here for as long as necessary. God bless. Imagine you are in constant danger from hidden roadside bombs and exposed to ambushes and sniper fire. Imagine that your home is constantly harassed with mortar explosions and rocket attacks while you try to sleep. Imagine you witness your closest friend being torn apart by enemy fire. Imagine you discovered that the person you thought was an insurgent that you killed turns out to be an innocent child or someone who looks similar to your mother. Now imagine you lost a limb. You lost your eyesight. You lost a friend. You lost your sanity and you lost your innocence for an unappreciative society and an unconcerned elected government. This is the testimony of Garrett Reppenhagen, who spoke earlier, Cavalry Scout and Sniper in the U.S. Army 1st Division from 2004 to 2005. He continues, I didn't expect to come home to find there is no plan for addressing the needs of veterans like myself. I don't understand how, despite being in the middle of not one but 2 wars, our government is actually scaling back on services that are critical for men and women trying to re-enter civilian society. Here are some staggering facts. 1 in 3 homeless Americans are military vets, and that is rising. 1 in 4 vets with PTSD sought medical care from the VA, where they experience a 2 to 3 month wait to see a doctor. Over 53,000 are wounded. The ratio of doctors to patients is 1 doctor for every 500 patients. Veteran males aged 20 to 24 have twice the unemployment rate. 40% of troops currently being rotated are National Guard or reservists. 95% of them are experiencing problems getting their pay. Many are being sent back, are on potent antidepressants, anti-anxiety drugs with little or no counseling or supervision or screening. Over 200 have committed suicide. There's a 70% divorce rate for returning soldiers. This GOP plan for 2007 drops $65 billion in benefits over the next 5 years. There was not a mention of this crisis in the State of the Union address, as if the war only exists over there and not here. And there was not an ounce of criticism from any of our presidential hopefuls. I say to those who tell me that we are fighting this war over there so that it doesn't come here, listen to the sons and daughters who are returning and their families, and you will know that the war is being fought here in the hearts and minds and bodies of those that are returning. And have already sacrificed so much. Shame on you. We are here today to say it is time to remove the burden of the political crisis of the Iraq War from our soldiers and commit to caring for a new generation of Americans who are grieving, severely wounded, and mentally troubled. Thank you.
I don't know what you're going to read tomorrow in the papers, but as far as the eye can see from here, there's people has been subpoenaed. Some have said recently that impeachment is off the table. the train coming down here today, I talked to a young woman whose brother has just been deployed. Due to the recent Bush escalation, her brother is being rushed into action. Instead of the proper 12-week training period, this young 20-year-old serviceman will hit the ground in a hostile land with 2 weeks training. Is impeachment still off the table? This past November, the American people sent a resounding message to Washington, D.C. and the world. We want change. We want this war to end. And how did Bush respond? 21,500 more will risk their lives for his misguided war. Is impeachment still off the table? Let's get him out of office. Let's get him out of office before Let's get him out of office before the only one on his side is his dog Barney. Richard Nixon, talked to the walls. Bush is talking to God. But it's not a God I recognize. This God seems to be giving George a pass on some of his major commandments. This God seems to be okay with lying or bearing witness, as he puts it, against the U.S. Congress, against the United States people, against the world. Bearing false witness on weapons of mass destruction, bearing false witness on nuclear capability, bearing false witness on the imminent threat of Saddam, bearing false witness on the links between Al-Qaeda and Iraq. This God seems to be giving George a pass on stealing the resources of the Iraqi people, on squandering the hard-earned tax dollars of United States citizens for an unnecessary war. Money that could be used to intelligently fight against terrorism is squandered in a way and in a war that creates more terrorists. Money that could be helping the elderly, the poor, the infirm here at home is instead lining the pockets of war profiteers from Halliburton and private mercenary militias like Blackwater. George's God says that's cool, George. His God tells him to honor his father and mother, but when his father tells him not to occupy Iraq, George's God counsels him to ignore his father. Well, I think we have a different understanding of those commandments here. And let's not forget that most important one, thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not kill or recklessly risk the lives of our brave men and women overseas. Over 3,000 dead, over 50,000 wounded. Thou shalt not kill or needlessly risk the lives of Iraqi civilians. How many? 50,000? 200,000? 400,000? 650,000? Only God knows, George. Only God knows.
Multitasking, and that's what we're going to do. I'm going to give you some instructions on how we start the march and the route and lining up, and also going to remind you of something very important, and we're going to hear some music while you guys are lining up. Now, to begin the march, we're going to depart from over here at 3rd and Jefferson. So you're going to make your way over here at the corner of 3rd and Jefferson. We're heading north, so we're going to be going this way. We have a lead contingent where they're holding a banner. Folks that you just heard, like Tim and Susan and Jane and somebody else. Oh yeah, Jesse will be in the lead contingent, and all the folks that you love and know and have fun with. And Sean, yes, Sean will be on the lead contingent. So that banner will be in the front. Really respect that if you can, in terms of, you know, some of y'all move faster, some of us are slow. So keep a pace so that we're all together, keep it together. Really appreciate that. One of the things that I really appreciate as well, God, y'all look beautiful. This is so beautiful. I'm so thrilled that I get to see these wonderful people here, making their voice known. You've heard all the great things today, I won't add to that, but I do want to make sure that you're able to look for those red buckets and put in $1 or 50 cents or $10. Make sure you keep enough money for a beer later, a good cup of coffee, maybe some dessert. But give us what you can and as much as you can so we can pay for this today. But I also want to make sure that you go home and you take the energy that you have today home with you. That you work locally. That you connect with other efforts that are going on. George Martin talked about the World Social Forum that went on last week. Later on this summer, we have the U.S. Social Forum. We have to keep this energy going. We have to make sure we're connected and we keep working. So head to 3rd and Jefferson, put money in the buckets, and we're going to have great music now. Bedouin is going to perform. Bedouin is connected to the Hip Hop Caucus. Well, that's great, but it doesn't help. And Bedouin, and Elaine, can you tell us a little bit quickly about the Hip Hop Caucus?
The Hip Hop Caucus is hip hop, not war. Make hip hop, not war.
So briefly about Hip Hop Caucus.
Okay, Hip Hop Caucus. My son Darius Jennings, he was killed November 2nd, 2003. Darius was a man of the Hip Hop Caucus generation that died in Iraq, like most of all the other soldiers. The purpose of to make the Hip Hop Caucus campaign is to get more people of color, college students, and young people involved in an anti-war movement. It's time for hip hop to break the silence. Our generation is fighting and dying in Iraq, and the generation must lead the campaign in bringing our troops home.
100 feet out to the right side of the stage.
So make your way to 3rd Jefferson and enjoy Bedouin.
God bless y'all. First of all, I wanted to say that no disrespect to any of the speakers who spoke before, but I do want you all to realize that your government was overthrown years ago. Yes! There was a president that you all voted in that did not take office 2 elections ago, and for everybody to stand around here and act like this did not go down is crazy to me. Because my government, that my father, who was a Tuskegee Airman, fought for, my grandfather, who fought in World War II, they did not fight for this. And the government that they fought for would not fight for them. So, in their spirit, I got a song for you all, and I do really want you all to understand that Islam means peace. And that these actions of these individuals no more define Islam than pedophile priests define Catholicism. So don't get it twisted. Sound person, can you cue up track 8 and bang it for the folks? Testing 1, 2. What's happening? If y'all can join in the chorus, it's called As Long As We Don't Take a Stand, as long as we don't demand peace all over the land, we all got blood on our hands. So join in with me. Seems like the whole world is gone insane, and we're the only ones to blame. Thoughts I know you entertain when you're home all alone. Frame by frame, checkmate is the game. Act now or to be nothing left to claim. Who's your daddy, who's your God? What's truth, what's fraud? Don't you find it just a little bit odd that half of us Americans believe a facade? When it comes to telling lies, they do a terrible job. Common sense ain't the thing you can steal a crowd. You mean to tell me that we are that dumb? Over half of us. Oh, wow. Can you start this over, fam? Well, if not, there we go. Forgive me, y'all. I'm a little emotional, because I buried my father a year ago right down the street. And this one is for you, Dad. My brand new baby daughter, Maisie. Here we go. Seems like the whole world is gone insane. We're the only ones to blame. Thoughts I know you entertain when you're home all alone. Frame by frame, checkmate is the game. Act now or to be nothing left to claim. Who's your daddy, who's your guy? What's truth, what's fraud? Don't you find it just a little bit odd that over half of us Americans believe a facade? When it comes to telling lies, they do a terrible job. Common sense ain't the same. You can steal a rob. You mean to tell me half of us are that dumb? Here or abroad, we're all dying from a gun of centuries of oppression. Weighing a ton. Don't want it for my daughter, don't want it for my son. You'd rather support it, you already bought it, but it still remains a crime whether or not you report it. As long as we don't take a stand, as long as we don't demand peace all over the land, we all got blood on our hands. We all got blood on our hands. Understand? My brothers and dying. The only one crying is the earth and they're dying. My brothers is dying. My sisters is dying. The only one crying is the earth and they're dying. I'm doing my best to make sense of it all and understand why so many have a voice so strong. In fact, we refuse to stand tall. Come too complacent, stand up and crawl. I want to think better of my people. We haven't been conditioned to the point we can no longer see through pure form of evil. Don't let it deceive you. It's on every channel, so you see the preview. Death and destruction, power corruption. How does new commodity drive it on destruction? Gotta be a man. Folks no longer there. Times of tragedy, otherwise it's fair. Shame on their mind. They too busy making money or they out committing crime. They say to hell with everyone else. I'm going for mine. So what is it you gain when you leave yourself behind? As long as we don't take a stand. As long as we don't demand peace all over the land. We all got blood on our hands. We all got blood on our hands. Understand? My brothers are dying. My sisters are dying. The only one crying is the earth in their lives. My brothers are dying. My sisters are dying. The only one crying is the earth that they dying. Shout out to my people in the Ukraine. We here in North America should have done the same. Our systems rotten to the core. Feel the heat from the flame. Still sitting on your butt. We'd rather complain. I know the reason why. God put me on this earth. Stand up for my people. Rap about the dirt. To rap about injustice. I don't care if it hurts. Too many mothers run. Child that gave birth. Don't you understand our insurance? Don't you understand the law? Don't you understand the gift? Don't you understand the cost? Understand what I'm saying? You lost in the cause. Look out there in the mirror, but you can't find your boy. You can't blame the cops if we don't make them stop. We can't fuck the system, we willing to cop. From Rwanda to the Congo to my birthplace, Chicago. It's all the same program they need to follow. As long as we don't take a stand, as long as we don't demand peace all over the land, we all got blood on our hands. We all got blood on our hands. Understand? My brothers is dying, my sisters is dying. The only one crying is the earth that they dying. My brothers is dying, my sisters is dying. And the only one crying is the earth that they dying.
I'm doing my best to make sense of it all. Can't understand why so many have a voice so small. Yeah, I'm doing my best, but as long as we don't take a stand, as long as we don't demand peace all over the land, we all got blood on our hands, blood on our hands. We all got blood on our hands, blood on our hands. My brothers is dying, my sisters is dying, and we all got blood on our hands, blood on our hands. My brothers is dying, my sisters is dying, we all got blood on our hands, blood on our hands.
So, cut the music down. God bless you. And the whole planet to get with this, because this is really where we need to be at. It's entitled One.
I'm looking to see if I can see it. Which way are you going to go?
There's just one. One sun, one moon, one voice, one tune. Sonorous, harmonious. Livingness is knowingness. One river, one stream, one consciousness, one dream. Detoxify to glorify. I've been sent here to testify. There's just one. One God, one nation, one race, one persuasion. Repentance fill the resonance on all the earth's residents. One heart, one beat, one voice, one speech. Prose to soliloquy, if once was true, shall always be. One family, one name, our DNA 99.9% the same. So plant this in your heart and your mind, for we're all just thread in one spool of twine. Cause one is the sum of all totals. Me plus each and every one of you equals one. So wherever you're at on the map, notice one simple fact, that one is the sum of all totals. Now let me mention our dissension from lack of prevention. United we stand, divided we fall. Economics, culture, race, and religion, these are the things that they use for division. My mission, cash points aside for the wishing. Now check this position, submission as you listen. New soul incision, come with solid precision. Guaranteed to clear up your vision. The truth prescription to heal all affliction. I think that it's time for a juxtaposition. For how much longer can a bad thing last? Send a blast, I'm up for the task. Me and you, there's no contrast. So what's all this foolish talk about class? I think you need to give your ignorance a bath. The proof is in our past. Same thing that makes you cry, makes you laugh. There's just one. See, you and I are single cells in this beautiful thing called life. And along with every other living thing, we form a complete body. And this body joins us for life, which is why we have to get it right. We're all soil from the same earth, fibers from the same shirt, branches from the same tree, waves from the same sea, plasma from the same blood, created from the same love. We're all in this life thing together. That which binds us can never be severed. From New York to Chicago, Bangkok to Cairo, Osaka to London, Spain to Belgium, Africa to Chile, Finland to Italy, jungles to mountains, we're just water from the same fountain. Rural to urban, beanies to turbans, black, white, yellow, red, rich, poor, hungry, or fed. From the birds to the trees to the air that we breathe. One is the sum of all totals. I love y'all. God bless you.
All right, we want to continue rolling with the march. Can our sound folks put on the music that we had this morning? It was great. It'll get you.
I'm here as an Iraq veteran protesting the immoral and illegal occupation of Iraq. I'm here largely to add to a movement that's been growing for many years. However, it's been largely suppressed by mainstream media sources due to the underlying economics, which is the incentive for the occupation of Iraq. However, this is too big to ignore, which is really heartwarming for me. I see news cameras out here, and I hope that the message will be loud and clear to Congress that people are not going to accept this anymore. I hope this will have some kind of resounding impact politically and socially in general for all people. This will change opinions and hopefully change the outcome of this conflict. I served in the Marine Corps from '99 to 2004. I served in Iraq during my time of service, and I'm very opposed to the war now. And the reasons are a mixture of personal and political. As a personal reason for being against it, I lost my best friend, Brian Kennedy, the first day of the war. This was a tremendous personal loss for me, and very much a reason to question the war, start questioning, which is where the political reasons come in. As I searched more for why we were doing what we were doing, I discovered more and more that it wasn't for the ostensible reasons, especially the ones given by the administration. This was not a war about liberating anyone. It wasn't a war about terrorism. It wasn't a war about weapons of mass destruction. Those things just weren't on the agenda. This was elucidated in what we did over there. After we invaded in March of 2003, the first military objective was the Qasr Peninsula, the tiny sliver of seaboard that Iraq has north of Kuwait. This is where we have most of the oil refineries and deposits and pipelines and things of this nature in the Iraqi oil infrastructure. This was the key thing to secure for us as military. Now, this could be seen as a legitimate military objective. We don't want these things on fire and so on. So it seemed okay that we were going there first. Also, it's geographically closest to Kuwait. But what happened afterwards was really bizarre for us. We went north up to the population centers and began sort of house-to-house disarming of population. Now, this wasn't terrorist cells. This was nobody except the average civilian, the farmer with his wife and 6 daughters in a house. We would kick down his front door, separate his family into rooms, tie them up while we searched their house and took away their old AK-47. Now, that kind of civil disarmament and behavior would never be tolerated in this country, to take away the civilians' weapons. Yet we expect the Iraqi people to accept this and even love us for it. It's absolutely ridiculous. Later we found out why this was necessary to do. What we were trying to do is prevent any kind of civil uprising against our occupation. So it was necessary to disarm the population as much as possible. Meanwhile, we were generating these hundreds of detainees. All of us had no language training whatsoever. We didn't know what anybody was saying, we didn't know what anybody was doing. All we could tell was people were screaming, they were upset, and understandably so. So the protocol is to sort of throw everybody out on the street. The men and women were separated. The women in one room, the children in another, and the men usually got kicked out in the street. Put face first in the dirt with a zip tie on their hands. Now, you can put yourself in those men's shoes. Your family's in the house, screaming, you don't know what's going on, there's foreign troops in your house. It caused a lot of commotion and unrest, and any sort of misbehavior on their part would automatically get them put in the back of a truck and carted off to some kind of processing facility. Well, of course, with no paperwork, there was no time for that. We're too undermanned for that. So you end up with these hundreds of arbitrary detainees in these detention centers, which were later exposed for the torture that was being conducted there. So after this house-to-house disarming of the major population centers, what we did was accepted the coalition forces into the country. And the largest contingent was Ukrainian and Polish. The Poles were ostensibly supposed to take over the command of the coalition forces. As a Polish speaker, I was asked to interpret between the American generals and the Polish generals. And after only several days of communicating between them, it was very clear that the Poles were going to have no part in this other than a political statement. They were given no clearance codes. They were told not to fly in certain areas. They were given no radio frequencies. They weren't allowed to do anything. They could have, from a military strategy viewpoint, taken the load off of the American troops, but they didn't. They weren't allowed to. This was, very revealing about what the American mission was. This is our war prize, our control. And really that's what the military operation in Iraq is about. It's about control. We're not interested in that oil. We don't import it. We don't rely on it. It's a very unstable region as far as importing oil. But it is a strategic interest to have our hand on the spigot, as it were. So that gives us a tremendous lever of power with other nations if we control that oil. It has also been linked to Saudi interests, which are further solidified by the close relationship between the White House and the House of Saud. Something else I'd like to mention is the absolute lack of care for the population. It's to the point where if somebody's in the way, it's easier to kill them than to detain them. As far as engineering, sewers, water, electricity, it just wasn't on the agenda. We didn't have any engineers with us. We didn't care. It just wasn't on the agenda. As far as finding any kind of terrorist cells, terrorism, it wasn't on the agenda. In fact, there's large suspicion that much of the sectarian violence was incited by sort of other U.S. organizations. This would be very consistent if we are to look at who was running the show in Iraq, amongst others John Negroponte and his operations in Latin America. This seems to fall into his standard protocol very neatly. It's very hard to find evidence for this. It's very well concealed. But I wouldn't be surprised if in the future we did discover it. This is something that I constantly look for in the media. So with that, once we recognize that the interests for being in Iraq are monetary, they're economic, they're about signing no-bid contracts, they're about profiteering from war, then the question is, well, how do we stop this? How do we stop another 500,000 Iraqi civilians being killed? And the answer is, well, there is no military challenge to the U.S. outside of the U.S. So looking for an external solution, I think, is pointless, especially since Iraq is such a huge military objective for anyone to try and control by force. I think the solution is going to be internal. It's going to be social pressure. It's going to be civil disobedience, things of this nature, to pressure politically the power makers, the policymakers in Washington. That and also a change in the economic fallout. If this stops to become being lucrative, then we can expect to see some change. And I think that's what we're seeing here today, is a mixture of those two factors. And as far as the ideas that if we pull out now, there will be all-out chaos and civil war and all this other things. Well, for one, there's what's going on there right now. We're already there. Second of all, I don't think this is true. I think the people there have a tremendous amount of power, and they have a right to that self-determination. They have a right to determine what their country becomes. They have a right to participate in their own government, not just Paul Bremer, who has absolutely no authority from any Iraqi person whatsoever. So I think that an immediate pullout and maybe a region by region or just flat out all at once, hand this over to the people there. We don't need any kind of strategy. These things will fall out sort of us pulling out. And we can expect only positive consequences of this, I think.
Hi, I'm Bill Peters. I'm a veteran, 1968 to 71, Vietnam. And I've been collecting signatures from people who are veterans against the war. We have signatures here. I think at this point, about 400 signatures on both sides. These are all veterans. They served from 1932 all the way to present day in Iraq. And everybody who has signed has said that they really want people to know just how much most veterans really loathe this war. And that's just what I had to say, and that's why I'm out here today.
It's really encouraging to see all these people here today. I hope that Congress gets the message that they should not be timid anymore. It was just the worst mistake they made to give Bush a blank slate to start this war. I think many of them knew that the purpose for it was bogus. And I just think people need to keep getting out like this to make the message clear. And I'm convinced, as an optimist, that all the big demonstrations we had leading up to this war and right after it started are what prevented us from being in Iran or Syria right now.
Well, ladies can do things in the Army, yes.
We can provide a service.
You know, little people, cannon fodder, that's okay. I mean,
that's right.
We would never do it personally, but, you know, for the little people, it's different. It has to be, because we need cannon fodder over there. You know, there's no way around it.
That's right. They're the only ones willing to do it.
That's right.
It's been an incredible day, actually. We were afraid it was going to be very cold. It turned out to be wonderful. Sun shining. There was a big turnout. I don't know how to estimate crowds, but there were a lot of people there. Great signs.
One of the policemen said there were 400,000 to 500,000, so that's good. So I guess it makes you feel good that this many people care.
Oh yeah.
And it was a pretty diverse crowd. A lot of 60s gang there,
but
though.
A lot of young people too.
Yeah.
A lot of young people. Lots of high school groups, so it's all encouraging.
And I came back from a week in New Orleans, working for Habitat for Humanity, where we really had a chance to see the incredible devastation and the lack of any real national or government support there. So it's volunteer by volunteer rebuilding New Orleans, and that's a wonderful feeling. But it will take a long time if we have to depend on volunteers. But people do show up, and that's what counts.
Well, as you said, though, George Bush never even mentioned New Orleans in the State of the Union.
Yeah, right.
Apparently he wants it to go away.
Yep. Very sad. So everybody keeps showing up.
Yep.
We got a hippie left back.
If y'all can join in the chorus, it's called As Long As We Don't Take a Stand. As long as we don't demand peace all over the land. We all got blood on our hands. So join in with me. Like the whole world is gone insane, and we're the only ones to blame. Thoughts I know you entertain when you're home all alone. Frame by frame, checkmate is the game. Act
People dead in the streets of Manila. I believe that the Bush administration does not understand the impact of war, and the Bush administration is committing an international crime. I've been against the war ever since the Bush administration was building up to the war. It's a terrible crime. It's depleting our treasury. It's diverting public service funds for the public. I think that Bush should be held accountable for what he's done, because he's responsible for a terrible crime. He's a war criminal.
Working people across this country are sick and tired of being sick and tired. Our message no longer goes out to George Bush, it goes to the people that we have put there to represent our will. Now everybody standing here knows that George Bush has a hearing problem. Am I right? We told him through our vote that we did not want this war to go on, but again he was deaf. Now, in this war now, we have a simple motto to put out there for folks to understand. It does not take a rocket scientist to give the message. It is simply a mantra of 3 sentences.
Are there others here?
Not one more death.
Nearly 4 years of the
Honesty, compassion, and whenever possible, non-violence. We also recognize the moral responsibility we have to raise our voices in support of those values when they are under assault. There is no morality without the willingness to act. That's why we are here today. Values of telling the truth, of helping those who are in need, and of never resorting to violence except as a last resort. Thank you so much that you have come here today to raise your voice out of deep concern for our nation. The fundamental values underlying our Constitution so dearly that you have come today to let the world know that we as Americans abhor the kidnapping, disappearance, and imprisonment of people without any semblance of due process. And that was sold to the American people and to the world at large on the basis of blatant lies. Because we value compassion, truth, and human rights so much that we want...
The American occupation of Iraq is enough, and that nearly 40 years of the Israeli occupation of Palestine is clearly more than enough. We're the U.S. campaign to end the Israeli occupation. We're a national coalition dedicated, committed, and will not stop until we change U.S. foreign policy to Israel-Palestine to be based on human rights and international law. And we're a member of the USPJ coalition because we have the same cause.
We're gonna need your energy, your passion, your commitment, and we're gonna need your money as well. For the past 4 years, USPJ has been galvanizing people's opposition to this war, and we've been doing it on a shoestring budget. But now we need your help because we gotta step this up. We gotta step it up to end this war. So today we need you to please dig deep, give generously to support the ongoing work.
Now, while you're digging deep into your pockets, I want to bring on Emma's Revolution.
Well, we're here from North Carolina because we think we need to fix things at home and not enough killing. We need to get some health care to this country. We need to get kids through college.
The troop surge in Iraq is pretty ridiculous at this point. We need to obviously have a new administration. At least the Democrats are in office now in the Congress, and we can get things done with raising minimum wage and helping the economy with the blue-collar workers losing all their jobs. Would anybody else?
Kelly? Jessica?
It's a great cause. I'm glad there was so much turnout here today.
A few volunteers to hold red buckets.
Good turnout.
We need help.
No more Bush. No more Bush. Thank you.
My name is Maxine Waters, and I helped to get rid of Rumsfeld. And Connie Rice is nothing but another neocon, and she doesn't represent me. He came out on the battleship and said, mission accomplished. He misled us again. I will not vote one dime between those who are ready to bring our soldiers home and those who are only paying lip service. Don't forget, he is not the decider. He is the... He's not the decider. He is the... control.
As Americans, we share common values. Values of life.
Every man and woman who dies in Iraq, whether our men and women or Iraqi men and women, belong to all of us. And every dollar that is spent are our dollars. And we're responsible for that. And we take that responsibility. We're doing our work. Now it's up to Congress. In the States, there are already 18 resolutions that are being passed to end this war. You can go to the WAND website, W-A-N-D, remember, New Directions, and find out if your state is there. If not, get your state to pass a resolution.
In these devastating 7 years, as this regime pursues its so-called agenda of security, it has made this world insanely insecure. Some of their logic: bomb Iraq to get rid of theoretical terrorists and manufacture thousands of terrorists in the process. Secure democracy by using techniques of torture and undermine democracy everywhere. Promise to liberate women and through occupation and invasion, and in the process reverse their constitutional rights, introduce Sharia law, rob them of protection, raise the level of violence that happened towards them.
My name is Philip Miller. I'm a veteran of World War II. I fought in the Battle of Manila, and I saw the suffering of civilians during the war. I saw many people